Everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of IPMA, I welcome all of you for our first webinar in partnership with Ernst& Young. In today's fast-changing and rapidly growing business environment in India is playing a very crucial role in world's pharmaceutical market. Indian market is growing much faster globally than previous decades in pharmaceutical industry. As IPMA, our members' core competency is manufacturing world-class machines and support the pharmaceutical industry with Indian make machines and services. And as an IPMA, we are always supporting our members by giving and creating the platform where we interact and learn from pharmaceutical experts and consultants like Ernst& Young. As IPMA, we also do many roadshows with panel discussions too. So fundamentally, we are creating and elevating platform where machine manufacturers, pharmaceutical professionals, and consultants can come on the same platform and discuss various ideas, problems, and solutions. As we all know, automation is the key for scaling up the manufacturing sector, where it is very much important for all of us to adopt the cutting edge new technology. And it is very much essential that we compete with the European technology and machinery manufacturers. Many of our members are also very much ahead in this journey in exporting to many countries. Having said that, we have selected today's webinar subject as pharmaceutical smart pharma manufacturing. And before I hand over to our moderator and the keynote speaker, Mr. Ram, I would like to thank entire Ernst& Young team, entire IPMA team who has worked so hard to put up this webinar. Also, I would like to welcome Mr. Sola Solarin from Africa, who is the president of Industrial Pharmacy Section of International Pharmaceutical Association, who is right now with us on this webinar. So I will not take much of the time, and I will hand over to Mr. Ram, who is the partner with Ernst& Young, who will take it over from here. Mr. Ram.
Ram, Ram, are you there? Ram, can you hear us? Tapan, can you get the deck on, please? Ram is there. 1 second. He lost signal.
Yeah, he lost.
And he's joining back. Get the deck on, please.
Yeah.
Ram, are you there, Ram? Can you hear us? Ram, are you there? Ram, can you hear us?
Yes,
Can you start?
I'm extremely sorry. I got thrown out. I don't know what happened. Probably a technical glitch. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you clearly, Ram. Please start off.
Okay. First of all, my sincere apology. I don't know what happened. Probably because of the network, I got thrown out. But I would like to take this opportunity to thank IPMMA, my IPMMA colleagues on the call, my co-panelists on the call.
Ram, we are not able to hear you.
You can hear me, okay?
Yeah, I can hear you at least, Ram, very clearly.
Yeah, I can able to hear. It's clear.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
It's audible.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So, first of all, thank you, IPMA team. Thanks to all my co-panelists and all the members who are attending this webinar. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you. Tapan, move to the next slide. As all of us know, India has already positioned itself as the world's pharmacy, right? And the overall pharma sector in India is growing at a very high pace. Currently, 65% of the drugs which are manufactured are in India. That obviously puts India in a very strong as well as a differentiating position across the globe. And we expect this to grow even further as we go, right? And so far, in last few years, the pharmaceutical industry has grown at almost 12 to 12.5% CAGR, and this pace will continue. Now, there are multiple initiatives across the country which are actually fueling this growth. One part, which is obviously the whole PLI schemes. The second is the focus on the research and development, which is actually nurturing the CRO, CRDMO organizations, as well as the investments which are happening in the country from all the multinational pharma companies setting up their global capability center in India, which is moving from just the capability center to the innovation centers, which is also strengthening the entire ecosystem. And obviously, the important piece, which is about the skills, right? Some of the Skill India initiatives, which are also ensuring that the pipeline of the talent which is built within India, which will support this growth of the pharma industry. As we speak, currently, we around 8% of the APIs are manufactured in India. And I expect that also to grow significantly. At the same time, a critical component of this pharma sector growth is the manufacturing, manufacturing equipments, as well as the machine manufacturing, which is required to support this industry. That also India plays a significant role in that. And that is something which obviously is going to fuel this growth further. Now, to support this growth, as well as to make sure that we have scalable operations and really drive this accelerated growth of a pharma industry, which is one piece which is very important is the technology adoption, which will drive that digitization of the entire value chain, and the pharma equipments as well as the pharma machines play a very critical role in that. So Tapan, if you can move to the next slide, please. So we clearly see over a period, there is a shift happening from the traditional siloed way of working within the pharma organizations as well as the pharma manufacturing setups, getting to the connected way of manufacturing. And the industry 4.0 or a pharma 4.0 is playing a very pivotal as well as a critical role in that. This enables seamless communication. This enables data sanctity. This enables also integrated operations. And some of the technology advancements, right, like the entire smart manufacturing, better energy management, smart sensors as well as smart equipments, which can connect the entire ecosystem rather than having the data only from specific devices and specific equipments. That gives you much better predictability in operations, predictability in the quality of the output, as well as helps in manufacturing and helps in actually governing the data across all equipments, and ultimately helps improve your compliance to the CFR regulations. And given the regulations are fairly stringent, it's very important that the trace of the data is maintained. You have ability to do simulations, and that is where the solutions like digital twins also help in the whole process. As we stand today, we see that around 51% of the pharma manufacturing organizations have already embarked on the smart manufacturing journey. And as the technology progresses, availability of communication networks across, as well as access to the newer digital technologies, I expect that percentage to grow. And because of that, the timing is right for all of us to look at how the manufacturing equipments as well as machines can be made far more technically enabled to fuel this acceleration of the adoption of smart manufacturing practices within the pharma industry. Next slide, please, Tapan. Now, we clearly see that there are multiple tangible as well as intangible benefits of adopting smart factory approach. Right from the first and the basic is obviously it helps you improve your productivity. And based on some of the benchmarks and some of the interviews in the market with some of the key stakeholders from pharma industry, we see that the productivity improvement by using the smart factory approach could be anywhere between 10 to 12%. That's a significant improvement. Similarly, by driving automation in the entire process, the labor productivity can be improved as well as the labor cost can be reduced. Waste management, which is a very critical component for driving sustainable pharma manufacturing, waste management, water management, as well as energy management. These are the critical components, and we can clearly see measurable benefits delivered by the smart factory approach. Other than this, very important ones are how do you drive the data ownership? How do you drive data accountability, measurability of a data, driving predictable manufacturing operations, which ultimately helps you with the compliance. It helps you making faster and real-time decisions, as well as it also gives you a lot more agility and flexibility. With a modular approach of equipments, as well as having real-time availability of a data, you can have a better control on the batch manufacturing. You can have much better control on the changes which you need to make, clearing of the lines. You have a better control on the calibration of your equipments. You have better control on the predictability in uptime of your equipments, which ultimately leads to a predictable as well as reliable manufacturing practices. Next slide, please. Now, while we go through this journey, there are multiple use cases, right, which can be actually implemented and which will drive some of these benefits. I would call that as a pharma digitization use cases. At the heart of this is the data. And when you have connected equipments, when you have your operations digitized, that will actually help you harness and nurture that new blood, which we call it data, right? So using the real-time condition monitoring, you have better control on the output, you have better control on yield as well as the quality of the output. You can drive some of the predictive maintenance use cases, which will give you prediction in your uptime of the equipments, better management of the utilization of your facility. And from a quality management perspective, there are multiple use cases. But ultimately, if we look at the data, that data which you have from equipments and without any manual intervention, the reliability of data significantly improves. Having that data and using some of the artificial intelligence as well as machine learning models, we can actually drive some of the optimization initiatives in manufacturing processes. We can bring in a lot more consistency in your operations. Similarly, the solutions like digital twin, as I mentioned earlier, it gives you ability to do simulations, minimize the risk of the losses, minimize the risk of rejections, minimize the risk of compliance related issues, right? So that actually brings in far more controlled operations. That gives you also ability to predict your operations and yield. The newest technology on the block is the generative AI, which actually has multiple use cases, be it related to drug discovery, be it related to the simulation of the molecular structures, be it related to the pharmacovigilance, as well as be it related to your clinical trials, right? Now, these are some of the use cases which can be implemented and these capabilities can be delivered. Tapan, go to the next slide, please. But what is more important here is the standardization. Standardization of the equipments, standardization of the technology plays a very critical role, because that will not only drive reliability of the data and reliability of the output, but that also make sure that multiple equipments, multiple machines which talk with each other, they use same technology, they use same protocol, their integration as well as communication is seamless. That will help you minimize the cost of the communication, minimize the cost of maintenance of the communications between the equipment. Now that actually brings a lot more accountability, and that is where many of the colleagues on the call, especially from the OEM manufacturers as well as from the machines manufacturer, also have a role to play in that. Now, standardization of network protocols, standardization of the API gateways, which ultimately act as a communicator or an integrator between various different machines and makes them seamlessly integrate with each other and increases the reliability of a data. So that standardization is extremely important. And there is a lot more focus being put by implementing ISA 95 standards, which actually helps in driving that standardization, the automation of the whole process. Sensorization in manufacturing, and then again, interoperability between the PLCs, interoperability between and ease of usage using the HMI interfaces for the machines. That also helps in driving the training and the learning management. That gives you efficiency in that. That improves the efficiency of the people who are operating those machines. That helps you in driving consistent usage of the machines as well as the consistent output across. So all in all, role of a standardization is extremely important. Industry, definitely that's a big challenge ahead of all of us. How to make sure that the machines, the OEM equipments as well as the OEM systems are interoperable and they follow standard protocols, they follow standard messaging patterns, and make sure that the operations are seamless. Next slide, Tapan. With this, obviously, when you drive standardization across OEMs and equipment manufacturers, the key component in this also which needs attention is the cyber security, especially when the operating technology and the information technology integration happens. There are vulnerabilities there. Those vulnerabilities need to be identified and addressed. So cyber security plays a very critical role in this. The other important component is, especially from the equipment manufacturing perspective, is the modular designs. How we can bring in flexibility in operations and agility in operations. Modular machine designs will play a very critical role in designing those flexible and agile operations. The other important piece is the knowledge management. Also, the other important piece which I would call out is about the data. Having data which is generated by the equipments and access to that data for the better analytics, getting real-time insights from that data. So as the machines can talk with each other seamlessly, the metadata structure or the data models used by these machines will be seamless, and then you can drive much better insights from that data. So that interoperability as well as seamless integration plays a very critical role in overall efficiencies and driving the manufacturing operations for the pharma industry to scale. So all in all, I would say that as the overall manufacturing of the pharma industry scales to the newer peaks, what is important is to drive digitization, and in order to enable that digitization, availability of data and seamless integration of that data plays a very critical role. And that is where the OEMs as well as the equipment manufacturers and all of us have a very critical role to play to make sure that this entire ecosystems work together to really drive and fuel that growth of the pharma manufacturing. With that, I would like to thank all of you for patiently listening and hand it over back to Tapan. Sorry, to Falguni.
Thanks, Ram. Thank you so much. Very insightful points have come out here. So with that, I would request all my co-panelists to come on the video here. So let me just introduce each one of them to the entire forum. First, Mr. Anil Arora, who is currently head of manufacturing and operations at Granules. In earlier days, he was with DRL, earlier to that in Zydus, Alchem, Pyramid Leopard, so multiple organizations with a wealth of experience in the manufacturing and operations side. So, Mr. Arora, if you can, yeah. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for being on the panel today. May I request others to please go on mute? I think there's some echo that is coming. Yeah. Next, may I request Mr. Athanu to come on the video, please? Athanu, again, he's currently the CIO of PI Health Sciences and PI Industries. But again, wealth of experience from his end. Erstwhile, he was with Biocon, prior to Biocon with Sun Pharma and DRL. And so I think in all these organizations put together, Athanuda would have done multiple such implementations in digital area across the organization. And your experience will be very insightful today, Athanuda. Thanks for making it today on this panel. Next, I have my colleague and co-panelist, Ani Anirudh Mehta here. Ani, if you can just switch on your video and then come on, please. Ani again has a mix of experience of both consulting and industry. Before getting into consulting, he was in Alembic. And again, he also comes in with a very strong digital focus across quality and manufacturing. And Ani also brings in the point of view as to what compliance aspects to be looked at from a perspective of pharma machines and digital is concerned. So considering this, let me just quickly deep dive on a question there. Arora Saab, if I had to ask you, what do you see the new trends that are emerging in the industry, which are having a high business impact? And what are typically discussed in the boardrooms today? And what do you see them to be as a major point?
Okay, thank you, Fagun. I think it's a good question. I would rather say Ram has covered majority of it as a part of his presentation, but still, if you look at majorly from industry point of view, apart from business, that's the common thing which starts for any organization, because pharmacy is passing through a different challenge, price erosion, specifically for generic products, since we make generic products. So that's a big challenge, and to overcome all of that, we need to really find out different ways. How do we really come back in the business and stay in the mainstream and stay competitive as well? So that's the biggest requirement. So now, if I look at what are the discussion points majorly? So one, I'm sure all of you must have heard of it recently, where we talk about sustainability and environmental responsibility in manufacturing processes, right? So you may say, how is it really related to digitization? But I think I'll talk about it because that plays a very, very important role there. Right? That's one point. Secondly, if you look at accelerated digitalization and adoption of advanced analytics, I think Ram touched upon it. How do we adopt, advanced analytics part of it? That's very important, because now it's becoming challenging as we go forward. Not only from manufacturing point of view, but also from marketing point of view. So even the marketing teams also are picking on that aspect. Third could be, of late, all of you must have seen growing regulatory scrutiny and compliance requirements, right? That's the biggest challenge now, for specifically for Indian pharma industry. In the last post-COVID scenario is different, right? So during post-COVID scenario, FDA specifically has strengthened, their regulatory inspections, and mostly surprise inspections are also happening. So that's where, so I'll say regulatory scrutiny and compliance requirements is the third one which I talked about. And from medical and the science point of view, and from marketing angle, for increased focus on personalized medicine and precision therapy. So we are moving towards that. So earlier, olden days when we started, it was like a tablet by going by the body weight, right? You doctor prescribes a medicine which goes by the body weight. Now different technology is being worked upon, saying a chip getting installed here in the arm, and it delivers you the right dosage as per the body requirement, rather than just going by the body weight, right? Yeah. And also rising demand for biologics and specialty drugs. So these are the major discussion points which are being talked about in any of the boardroom.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. Very insightful. Athanuda, from your perspective, looking at it from a technology angle and from an IT angle, what are the typical trends that you see, Athanuda?
So to a large extent, the needs have not changed too much, apart from the precision medicines, or as well as digital therapeutics is another new area which is coming in. So digital therapeutics, as in, for example, something to aid the doctor, where if along with what dose of insulin to be given, the algorithm suggests and aids the doctor into doing it.
Sure.
But the key problems still remain, and one of the important parts are having a very responsive supply chain, in terms of how do I reduce failure to supply, how do I have the right product of right stocking level in different places, because my capacity in the plant is limited. And with Indian companies manufacturing so many SKUs, it is innovators have it easy. They have dedicated plants and lines which make dedicated production. In Indian plants or generic suppliers are making so many products in the same facility. So having a responsive manufacturing and supply chain to meet the demand and ensure that there is no failure to supply, and you keep growing and keep your costs down on a regular basis, I think continues to remain as a very, very important driver, and where all these things of smart manufacturing and digital initiatives to continuously help in that plays an extremely important role. It is not just a lip service. It actually makes that happen. So I think that remains. And the new things like digital therapeutics are on the other end, which are adding, but they will have slow adoption. It has also regulatory hassles. In my previous organization, we tried to do that in US FDA for diabetes, but it takes lot of data and lot of effort. It will be a while before it happens. But I would continue saying that, the digitalization and efforts for ensuring and creating a responsive supply chain and an agile supply chain which ensures a better OTIF, reduces failure to supply penalties, ensures that there are no lost opportunities in the market. I think that is a big value add. And the other part is the compliance and regulatory part, that how do you ensure 21 CFR Part 11 through through digital means. Can you do a continuous validation, not as a point of time or as a after effect? For each of the equipments, can I have the validation, ongoing validation getting done as it happens, so that I don't have to take an equipment downtime, do that as a regular activity. Whenever an US FDA audit happens or any audit happens, production goes slow, people do that, and there is huge loss of capacity in that thing. So these are some of the areas, real life problems, day-to-day problems, where significant and solid amount of digital transformation done in a very intelligent way can help go in a long way.
Absolutely. Very good thoughts, Athanuda. Thanks for that. Ani, you have looked at it both from inside and from being in an organization, and also today in the new world of yours in the consulting way as well. So what do you see the trends, Ani, from that perspective, from both perspectives?
So, having, Ram starting off and covering a lot of points, being a last speaker on this kind of a panel is a very big, this thing to come, bring up with something new over here. But no, having seen it from both sides, there are a couple of points which I would like to make over here. One is, specifically with the kind of globalization and geopolitical uncertainty which is there today. And every pharma company moving global, every Indian pharma company doing a lot of work globally. Their boards are getting this as a part of their strategy, saying how do we navigate geopolitical risks specifically? How do we diversify international operations and maintain resilience amid all these kind of uncertainties? And these are not just risks in terms of the political risks, but these are also risks in terms of the regulatory norms which are coming up in global markets, which are different with every geography or every demography. And what Tanuda said, specifically in terms of your 21 CFR Part 11, which probably would cater to the US, but Annex 11, Health Canada, Anvisa, your Middle Eastern norms, everything is coming up with something different. Again, certain data norms with, Asian countries are different, where you need to recite data, certain financial concerns. Now, all this is coming in and, hitting the boards, because that is the kind of data which is getting delivered to the board today with the available technology. So they also want to use this, or want to use technology specifically to help them resolve these kind of issues or develop a resilience in terms of supply chain or business. Second point which I would like to make is, one is the rapid technology advancements. A lot of companies are sitting on legacy technologies today. Board is also discussing, saying we are ready to upgrade, we are ready to invest and push into technology. But how are you going to make sure that the operations continue running? I don't shut down a line to upgrade a line. How are you going to make sure that my data which is there, which is legacy data, a lot of data which is there, is migrated or is archived in the right manner, that when I need to get it, use it, it is available.
Absolutely. Fair
It
challenge.
just does not go into an archival, which is of no use.
Absolutely.
And the last thing, which is, I think everybody, not just pharma, every board is talking about, is artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Because that is something which I feel is now going to be everywhere, and you cannot bypass it.
Yeah.
So, a very difficult question which we were asking when we were on the other side of the table, and now I'm on this side of the table, is how do you validate AI?
Yeah. Yeah.
Self-learning, self-changing.
Yeah.
I can validate to a certain level. It's a ML algorithm I still can understand. But when it comes to AI, how do you validate AI? Do you do you feed in with the compliance norms and ask it to validate itself?
Sure. Sure.
So those are also the point of discussions which boards are bringing in nowadays.
Fair thoughts. Very fair thoughts.
Thanks, Falgun.
Sure. And I'll come back on a couple of more insights from you on that. But again, if I do do a round robin on a couple of other things and focusing more around manufacturing and quality today, which is a key theme from a perspective. So, Arosab, if I had to come back to you and understand what are the new digital and upcoming technologies that you see are being used or trying to be implemented, which applications are being looked at or adopted in the pharma industry today, more from a specific angle of manufacturing and quality. Any thoughts around that, Arosab, from your end? You're on mute, Arosab.
Sorry, a lot of those, not one. I think lots of those. So I could see few, being touched upon by Ram. So just if I have to give one example, let's say, since we are talking about equipment manufacturer also being with us, so
Sure.
predictive analytics, right, and also machine learning for process equipment and quality control both. That's something which is very, very important and is being talked about. And I'm sure when we come to the cost part of one example could be, can we really look at the failure of the yields? Where are the yield losses happening? How do we really, recover those? Where exactly is the loss happening? So all that analytics also is really touching. Same way, if you look at the batch failures, right? Normally, industry which caters to US and other markets. So any batch failure is a huge cost or a huge impact for them.
Understood.
Now this analytics is really helping everyone to really look at the golden lake or the golden internal batch, which really tells you how the batch is progressing and how do you monitor, what do you monitor, is it your input, is it your equipment, is it the human part of it which is really creating an issue. How do we look at that as a big area? So that's again the big one. And Internet of Things, IoT, sensors for real-time monitoring. Not only I think I remember Fagun, you were the first one whom I worked with for when we started working in pharma on OE monitoring, right? So the dashboards now people
digital
are
OE.
So people are talking about OE. How do we monitor it? Rather, expectation is that equipment manufacturer should give us those kind of dashboards on the machine itself, which catches the running of the equipment, etc., and tells us, what is the OE for particular batch and equipment. That's again and IoT connecting for efficiency part of it, whether you connect it to your HVAC system or to any other system, which tells you the efficiency of that particular system. This can't be worked out in isolation. So, nowadays people have to make use of robotics and, the automation part, right? So it cannot be done with a human intervention, all of this. So we need to really have a combination of both coming together to really work on. The latest one, which normally not many industries have used, is a virtual reality and augmented reality tools. Right? It's not only for building the capability of the people, but also ensuring compliance in that area. Right? That's the biggest one. I hardly see as on today. I hardly see many industries using it. I think it's coming up now. People have done, so it was used more for the training tool, but now it is used for capability building and also on the machine part of it. Also, supporting operators and all people on the shop floor for the compliance part of it. and blockchain for supply chain transparency and counterfeit drug prevention, specifically in India market. Many industries, and I'm sure you are aware of which industry. I don't need to name those, but there are industries who are working on this part. This is a bigger one now.
Absolutely.
So
with all the counterfeit drugs, I'm sure that would be one of the areas, especially in the India market, that would be there.
Yeah, not only that, just the last one. You would have seen the trend of increasing market campaigns coming in, right? Pharma industry. How do we really, because the volumes are going up, SKUs are going up, different kind of packs, etc. So that also, these tools will help there as well. So how do we make use of it is something which we need to understand. We have used it. People have to use it still. So
Sure, absolutely. And Atanu, you really touch upon a lot around supply chain and stuff around the inventory part of it. Again, specific focus on manufacturing quality. What are the various digital initiatives that you see that are being taken up, Atanu, which across the organizations you have worked and in general trends on the industry?
So quite a few in the manufacturing side, but the key initiatives which people can start immediately. So there are initiatives in a new factory and initiative in an existing factory which might have older technologies and what type of things can be done there. So things on predictive maintenance, because that also gives quick impact, like have small sensors, get the data, and can you prevent unscheduled downtime? Then on the other, and that is something which gives results quickly. And using the same sensors, can we predict safety alerts? Can we get safety incidents? Because these being chemical factories, whether it is in the API side or you're handling unknown chemicals, that becomes for an existing factory a very important use cases. The other part is the golden batch, finding out the golden batch part of it, having all the data from the historian, converging the data from the quality systems, earlier batches, and the various parameters, CPK and others, and to say what should be the various parameters for the golden batch, which subsequently helps in yield improvement. And even before going into machine learning part of it, but those are the areas where I see very important. And now this yield improvement, one very interesting use case which I have found is, like in one of my previous organizations, there were lack of skilled operators for fermentation process. And because of now having these models created, even a not so experienced operator could take help of the model to get a higher yield and a consistent yield. So these solutions are also bridging the gap of skill level of workforce which comes through experience that can get done, because the industry also faces a skill gap. And so these are some of the things. So one is on the predictive and preventive maintenance, safety. Then also, talked about the waste management and the effluent treatment plants, and having the sensors, trying to identify using machine learning algorithms what type of either effluent are getting, improving the efficiency of the effluent treatment plants, energy conservation, and then on this golden batch yield improvement. So these are all the various things within the factory which I think of. And the part of what can you do on existing plants, specifically where the plants might be old, and easiest way to start. One is that on one hand, on the golden batch type of thing, since there are some type of data which already gets accumulated, combining all the data, one can definitely start that very easily. Another is putting vibration sensors and temperature sensors on the critical equipment, for example, centrifuge, or things like that. One can get faster bang for the buck, which convinces the management. They see some movement, they see some benefits coming in. So then everybody joins in and the movement starts.
Sure. No, very fair points. I think compliance, you said predictability, you also spoke about golden batch analytics, and also looking at how do you really do a repeatable part of it, because not just achieving golden batch at one instance, but achieving every time that you do. Very fair points. Ani, what do you see as trends here? What are the different ones in manufacturing and quality, and more so, what do you see in quality? Because your focus has been more around quality. If you can throw some light around specifically on quality. You're on mute, Ani. Ani, you're on mute. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Uh, so, one thing which specifically I have seen is, the hardcore use of predictive analysis, and which is something, which is, just mind-boggling, because a 10-year old data trend could show that certain times of the year when the humidity, outside humidity is higher, and you increase the drying temperature for powder drying, the tablet which is finally made is more brittle. And half of the time packaging rejections are there because the tablet chips off. These kind of analytics were never there probably a 5 year ago or 6 year ago, which we see now. And we see a lot of quality heads picking up with the SFG testing, which keeps happening across. And these trends bring out a lot of insights over here. That is one thing in quality, which I have seen, and something which is really picking up a lot.
Okay.
Getting specifically into quality deals with a lot of data review.
Absolutely.
And there is humongous amount of data which a quality team reviews at various stages in the life cycle of a drug development, a manufacturing process.
Manufacturing, yeah.
This also includes some kind of review which is practically impossible, which a lot of teams have now automated.
Yeah.
There are bots sitting in, and these bots in fact are more into proactive reviews rather than reactive reviews.
Okay.
What I mean by that is there were a lot of reviews which were probably happening at the end of the year, end of the month, sorry, or end of a particular phase. And then if there were some issues found, there's a backtracking which was done. Instead, there are bots which are running within the system to track certain irregularities in the trends or in certain data, and highlight it immediately at that point of time to bring out a immediate stoppage or immediate rectification over there, rather than wait for the error to occur, right?
Sure.
Rather than the error to occur, and then we do a kappa. So it's more of a paka which is coming in quality with the use of technology, preventive and then corrective action kind of a thing. Another thing which I have seen is a lot of automation and AI and ML mixture for specifically your CDS data and the CDS area calculations and all that stuff which is there, which is a very tedious work which a QC team keeps doing day in and day out. Now, there are AI models and various platforms which are also being used and are in demand to specifically, do that data extraction, do that area calculation, and actually bring up the final result, which brings out a lot of quality. Now, what is also happening over here, it is not just improvement of the process or improvement of your automation or digitization of quality. What is also happening is you are building a continuous quality culture within the organization. You are bringing in compliance over here because you are saying, I'm moving with a standard method over here. I'm moving with a standard way of working over here. And I am not just considering data which my human eyes have seen. I'm considering everything which is there across the organization.
Yeah.
So that's where I am bringing in as many parameters which are available across to find out an RCA or justify an OS, which is not just for a regulator, but also for me within the organization where I'm optimizing a lot of things which I have.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Another thing very important is in, one of the technology which I was discussing the other end is AR VR, specifically, in gene therapy and everything, to see how do they behave in terms and the gene alteration with AR VR.
Understood.
And rather than actually doing it and getting it performed somewhere is kind of also a very, but this is a very niche space and a niche area. But yeah, there is something which is coming up.
Understood. No, that's a very fair thought, especially when it comes to quality control with lots of data in place, how can you really digitize stuff. But for all these things, your infrastructure, the way your machines are being put in, the way the data flow happens is very important. Atruda, if I can quickly ask you to respond on this and your thoughts. And India being a manufacturing hub, you have lots of industries or manufacturing sites across India today, and most of them where it's all already built, and couple of you did articulate that it's all 30, 40-year, 20-year-old sites that we have. Now, from an infrastructure perspective, Atruda, how have you seen that? You've been on organizations which have legacy sites, greenfield sites, new sites, etc. Of course, in greenfield, it becomes much easier for you to handle these and bring in an industry 4.0 perspective. How have you looked at infrastructure becoming a challenge for you? And what have you really done to overcome the challenge from an infra perspective and not looking at it as a major bottleneck?
So, Falgun, for an old site, it is definitely a challenge.
Retrofitting
Because
things
there
up.
will be clean rooms, there has to be Wi-Fi would not be there. So setting up the network is one of the prerequisites, whether I do a Wi-Fi or I do the cable network, it might lead to disruption which no plant can afford.
Take up.
As such, there are enough disruptions when inspections happen. So they can't, they can't avoid that, but for this, people would not like. So it is a challenge. And places where revalidation needs to be done, requalification needs to be done for equipment, people will not like to do it. So these are very, very pertinent things. Now, one has to look at smart solutions, and also many plants where there will be things related to fire or risks of this. So you can't change this.
And also maybe you would have come across where the machine compatibility to extract data is also not at all there. That's another challenge that
yes. So all these realities are there. So, it is what I have seen in many of these organizations where we have gone for Industry 4.0 is actually see where you get maximum bang for the buck. Don't do it unless you need it. Really, you'll get benefits, then you do it. So the golden batch part, and by the convergence of data, even if you don't do it with actual integration, and doing, but even if it is semi-automatic, but converge the data and do analytics, that itself gives a huge, I think that gives a huge bang for the buck. Even if I don't have integrated streaming data. So I don't have streaming data, but I get data in batches, I consolidate it and then do my machine learning algorithm. I'm not doing infrastructure changes. I don't have to go for revalidation of a plant, or I don't want to stop operations and those things. Then it is perfectly fine. Then the next category where it works very well, especially formulations and not the API sites, are where I can put vibration sensors on the equipment, easy to do, and then start getting a lot of data. And many places DCS, if it is there, but people not have used DCS data effectively. I've seen in many of my previous organizations, there was a DCS, there was a historian, but we didn't use the data that effectively. There is wealth of information and knowledge which is already there, but it has not been exploited to the largest extent. But so I think with minimal intervention, which things will work, AR, VR, it can make a huge impact. Even this, so line clearance, I can significantly impact productivity, with very minimal thing. Then, things related. So AR/VR is one thing which has not been used too much, but it can help a lot.
Sure.
These sensors where
Data extraction.
I can get
Extract
important
data.
data and do predictive maintenance, safety alerts, safety, very important use cases. But basically, I would not suggest large scale changes in the plant in terms of network. It becomes a non-starter, huge amount of investment, stoppage of plant, but without giving too much of commensurate benefit. But the new
Understood.
plant definitely designed for
Start from that.
Industry 4.0 smart plant operations.
Understood. Fair thoughts. Arora Sahab, you have seen some of the plants go through this journey multiple places. What are the challenges or adoption issues that you have seen? Of course, Atanu touched upon the infra-related challenges, but more from adoption from a people perspective, machine perspective, product perspective. If you can put your thoughts around that, I think that will be useful.
So, frankly speaking, if the okay,
yes. No, it's to me or to Atanu, I don't know.
I asked Arora, but yeah, Atanu, if you want to just respond on that, then I can go to Arora.
No, I let Arora sir first go ahead. Then
Sure, thank you. So, I think we talked about it. Data privacy and security concerns. That's the biggest one. You would have seen recently, especially with sensitive patient information, and also from R&D. When I think I heard Ani talk about that part. So important is while we do all of this, we have to make sure that R&D, being a very very sensitive area, is not connected into the mainstream. It remains separately, so that that part is at least safeguarded, because the moment we lose that part, it's a big loss to any organization. So that's the most crucial area where we need to really look at my point of view. Also, while we do all of this, there are regulatory barriers and compliance requirements when we do all of this. So even today, if you ask the industry, while we are implementing all of this, how do you qualify these systems? How do you make it auditable, right? So I'm sure everyone may not have the answers ready to this question, saying how do we really put it forward and make sure that we show it to regulators, saying, okay, you can look at it and we are ready from audit point of view, and we are confident. So that confidence is still very low. I remember, when we started long back on moving from manual batch records to MES system, right? So that was the first stage in the pharma industry. People were very hesitant moving to this system, saying, we'll get exposed, we'll not be able to make changes to this, whatever minor changes we are able to do today. But then of late they realized that this is the best system to adopt, right? And those industries, one of the industry I work, not one, two industries, and now I'm working on the third one as well. So they have seen the benefit of this. Now every industry is coming forward to adopt this, saying, okay, let's look at it. But important is to first digest and make sure that we are for this kind of initiative and go it. Sure. Legacy systems, I heard them talk about legacy systems and infra constraint, right? We still have a mix of all old equipment and new setup. How do we integrate to the new system? Because it needs a lot of investment. But now, if you look at it from the recent changes point of view, we can just upgrade our equipment with the help of our equipment manufacturers and all. They support us to a greater extent, and then we can go to the next one. And I think the point which I'm going to make a mention of it now, it should have come first. Resistance to change and organization culture barriers, right? Because that's the biggest barrier. When you talk about this kind of a technology, every organization will know what is there for us, and we will have a lot of issues. How do we make sure that these are compliant? Will we lose job, etc. A lot of things are there. So that kind of resistance is also there. We need to really look at. But I think people now understand that, saying, rather than doing the routine activities online and all, which is not adding any value, if we adopt these kind of systems, then we can stay focused on our core areas, which you are moving out of those areas. Also, talent shortage. While we are working on this part, but parallelly we have not developed a talent to handle all of this, right? It's happening parallelly. It is taking time, right? It's taking time to develop the skill for this level. Though, if you look at from, digitalization and these initiatives worldwide, I think India is coming up on this initiative. Worldwide, they value Indian teams on this initiative, but still a long way to go. Another one is high initial investment cost. Right? You implement this initial cost. So people need to understand this part, saying how do we justify the investments? But if we really, put down on a paper and start quantifying, we'll be able to see that this investment is nothing against the benefits which we are going to get.
Absolutely.
For example, for any industry, just for an example, yield part. If I pick up yield part and say if the industry, bigger industry of any size, we can see a benefit, straight away benefit to the tune of around 20-30 crores.
Easy.
Or a failure, cost of poor execution, hundreds of crores. So these are a lot of benefits. We need to just put it on the right sheet and justify saying what are the benefits coming out of this. So these are few things which are important from my point of view.
Sure. Yeah, Atanu, you also wanted to respond on this, maybe if you can quickly.
So some of the I think the new technologies, when we are integrating things, generally is getting designed with better user interface. So the adoption, which was earlier phase, because the new technologies are also more intuitive in nature. So the front end and the user interface tends to be better. So the earlier resistance which people were having in terms of adopting, that gets significantly reduced.
Understood.
So from a user adoption perspective, the challenges are less. On the other hand, the trust on the data, because now we are converging data and the tool is saying, hey, this is how it should be. Now, do I trust the tool? So the tool is saying, if you do this, the yield will go up. The tool is saying, the machine learning or AI is saying something like this. But is it intuitive to my mind?
Yeah.
People, that dissonance is there. That earlier I was doing a more deterministic, or this is how I have been trained this way, this to think, but now the tool is saying something. The tool is saying reduce testing you can do. The tool is saying these things, but do I go by what the tool is saying, or do I do what I have been trained to think? So because the recommendations which the tool finally gives might not make sense, or so though that challenge will be there, but the user interface has improved. What I find other challenges, which is not really adoption, but to sustain it, is that significant what goes behind the hood of the car. Underneath the hood of the car is now you have an infrastructure which needs to be sustained. Backups of earlier, I was only taking backups of certain things. Now I need to take backup of the whole connected ecosystem. I have to build redundancy and robustness of the whole ecosystem. And if it fails, then there is a huge problem. If a virus comes in, then there is a huge problem. So these are the other challenges which sometimes organizations
don't foresee it.
Don't invest in or think through it properly. Are they taking backups of the whole thing? How is the backup architecture? If something fails, how do you bring it up? Because that increases investments also significantly. But most of the times, more than the investment, it is an afterthought. It is not thought through in the beginning. That creates subsequently a lot of running problems.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, very fair points. Very fair points. And I'm actually tempted to ask more questions around this, but considering the paucity of time, I'll just come to you, Ani, for one last question around it. Just to understand, while there are different machines, different thoughts to make digital in a better manner, to pull data out, etc. Two parts to the question here. One, how do you see the compliance standing up for this? And what are the compliance standards, or is there any compliance standard that has been put in by regulators around this? Second, there is again variation from machine manufacturer to machine manufacturer. Each machine manufacturer brings in a different perspective of his own machine, the way data comes out from his own machine. So your validation standards change. Do you think at some point in time, do machine manufacturers need to standardize some bits of it? Or at least from a compliance standpoint, what better standards do the OEMs need to take in so that at least from a compliance standpoint, if it is standardized or brought into the same level, for pharma manufacturers, it becomes much easier to take up some of the digital initiatives. Maybe if you can bring in some thoughts again from a compliance angle on that, that will be useful.
So, Farun, what I've seen over here is compliance and regulatory will keep changing as per the regulators, as per new technologies keep coming in, as per new learnings for the regulators as well. So, a simple example, if you say you're going to tomorrow start 3D printing medicines to customize them and give it to patients in the from the doctor's chambers directly, and the pharma will only supply the API to the doctor, then the complete compliance and the regulatory part will be a complete different angle to it.
Yeah.
So machine manufacturer, there are standards which like US FDA or MHRA or other authorities which keep bringing in and updating themselves also around those standards and bringing in certain regulations as well as guidelines to help these manufacturers abide to. But what I also have seen in practicality in terms of compliance over here is also the implementation of this at your organization is also compliance.
Okay.
Because a lot of time we see that this is the way we work, this is our process, we need to customize it in this manner.
Yeah.
And you don't realize, but at times you also end up, sacrificing compliance or overdoing compliance with these kind of customizations which you do with standards or standard machinery which you get from manufacturers.
Okay.
Now, one more thing, what I see, this was the first part of your question, are there any regulations or anything? There are. So if you see a regulation, there is, your CFR is there, your annex is there. There are quite a few of the MHRA brings out their own set. WHO has their own set. There are a lot of these which are available. And they keep upgrading also. As a part of the industry thing also, if you go to see, then there is GAMP which is available for a lot of these processes and implementation of these softwares and bringing in this within the organization, which brings you a lot of these good practices which you can implement within the organization to help you move further, or even these vendors or your suppliers can pick up these good practices and accordingly build their systems or their hardwares to supply to these specific areas.
Understood.
The second part of the question, what I feel is, there is some flexibility which is to be needed over there. Because with clients may have specific requirements, or the pharma companies would have specific requirements, because every process. I think the screen went off.
Go ahead. It's basically for people to put in the questions.
Okay, perfect.
To continue.
Because every process and by process what I mean is every manufacturing recipe is different, although the salt would be the same. So there the flexibility always needs to be there, or there what I mean by flexibility is within compliance, but there will always be a change. You can't have a standard solution for everything or a standard compliance statement for everything.
Sure.
So, and one thing is manufacturers who are manufacturers, I mean, on the vendor side or on the supplier side, who are providing these digital solutions or who are providing these machines, if they are updated on regulatory compliance and standards, it would be easier for the clients.
Understood. Fair thoughts, Sunny. Thanks. I think I'll just open the forum for questions. Any questions? Probably Harshit, you want people to just unmute and talk about it? Kaushik, Harshit, if you can just If anyone has any questions, please.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
This is Ranjit.
Hi, Ranjit.
I want to understand the difference between the digitalization and digitization.
Athanuda, you want to pick that up?
So primarily in digitization, we are looking at various tasks and digitizing that particular task. In digitalization, we are looking at the entire process end to end, and we are digitizing the entire process. But while we are digitizing it, we might be also transforming the process in the sense that we might not follow the same steps as we were doing it earlier. We are looking at the whole process. Say, suppose accounts payable is a process. In digitization, I would have just digitized that particular task entry into this field or that step. But here I look at the whole process and digitize the whole process. And in that process itself, I might transform the process. I might not do it the way I was doing it earlier.
Change the process.
Or maybe we can also say, process of converting information into a digital format is what normally digitization really means, right? And probably digitalization is more of a, scanning a picture, uploading paper documents, and converting a report into PDF. That's more of a digitalization. Just a simple.
So it's like paper on glass, you mean to say?
Thank you, Ranjit. Anyone else who wants to ask any questions, please?
Oh, one more question, if you allow me.
Sure.
Is it possible if we, unless and until our process and procedures robust, can we implement, can you go to our AI, whatever AI is coming? So
let me just answer that, Ranjit. Typically, what we normally advise is that in the current process, it's always important to remove the inefficiencies that is there and then digitize the entire process. Because what happens typically is if you're going to just digitize the existing process, then you are building in inefficiency in the digital platform or the digital area as well. So the typical thumb rule that you need to follow there is remove the inefficiency, make your process robust, then digitize it so that you're able to sustain it over a period of time.
yeah, then fine. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else would?
Yes, I want to ask.
Yeah, please, sir.
Thank you so much for giving me chance. As I am a fresh new entrepreneur, what should I do?
Can you please identify yourself and then a question?
Yes, I am a last year B.Pharm student and I want to start my entrepreneur journey in pharma. So in what arena I could build a business? We are having a very huge skilled personalities. Yes. So if I can get a guidance which could help me in my career.
Arosa, you want to?
Yeah, okay, I can. So, I think better is to start first. You should learn in the industry what is happening around the industry, before straight away jumping into the business part of it. Because, though you can go into learning entrepreneurship, but first come into and take experience and see what are the challenges. And, accordingly, you can customize it as per your requirement. But important is to spend some time in industry, learn all the aspects, right from manufacturing to quality to to the financial part, and then go and take that challenge. It's my suggestion.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, Avinash has raised his hand. Avinash, you want to? Avinash, you can unmute.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Falgun. I'm Avinash Sanas. I'm from Southeast Spectrum Private Limited, and we are planning for automation and going for ERP. We are very confused because there are several types of ERPs, and then there is a SAP also. So the first confusion is on what platform should we go? So if browser or someone could guide us, which is the best implementer, and we have also seen some cases in our due diligence that some pharma companies have failed on certain platforms, maybe on Microsoft or maybe on some apps or something. So we are confused on that. Can you please guide us on this?
Athanuda, you've done multiple SAP implementations, you've done multiple ERP, maybe you will be best suited for this.
But I didn't hear the question properly. If
Yeah, even I couldn't hear that part.
Yeah, but he was asking, if I can reiterate it, Athanuda, for you. He was asking which ERP platform should we go ahead? SAP is there. There are multiple others. Which do you think would be best suited for the?
So I think
For the
it
pharma.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which ERP platform you choose. It is important. First is to, I think important criteria are few things. One is that one needs to design the business processes appropriately. One should be smart and careful in designing the business processes in the best possible manner. The other thing is, from a tool perspective, there are few criteria one needs to check. One is that how does the tool ensure data integrity, and how between modules the data is seamlessly integrated. SAP and standard products by default over their years of experience have ensured that data integrity within SAP is taken for given, irrespective of as many transactions you do, whatever you do, your calculations will be accurate. I think that data integrity is extremely important because then you will trust the data. So when you are selecting a tool, one should do the basic things. If it is not SAP, then people should ensure that the data integrity is maintained. We take it for given over these 25, 26 years that ERP evolution has happened. But I have seen many products where data integrity across transactions, there are questions about that, and that doesn't happen. For example, even in SAP or some SAP it happens, but if you do the potency or calculation of when you are dispensing, when you're taking from different batches which are having different potency and then you dispense, is the potency correct calculation? Does the system ensure it? There will be many systems which will not be able to do it. And these are the critical elements which one needs to check when you are selecting your SAP or your ERP system.
ERPs. Ram, you want to add in any points here, Ram, on the ERP side? Ram, you're on mute.
No, I think, no. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, please go ahead.
No, I think Tanuda absolutely covered most of those, right? Because it is all about one look at the processes. There is no silver bullet, right? Yes, you can go by what is adopted by and large in the industry, right? But I think what are the processes? Make sure that your processes are first established properly and designed properly, and then select a solution which is fit for purpose, right? Because that also makes a very that's a very critical element, because there are ERPs which cater to large pharma companies, right? But depending on your size and scale, that may not be the right answer for you, right? So I think what is the objective you have, and then depending on that, you can choose a right ERP product. That's what I would say.
Absolutely, and a fair point. It boils
Thank you so much, sir. This was very valuable. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Avinash. It again boils down to budget, Avinash. You will have to look at that as well at the end of it. I think Piyush has a question. Piyush, you want to? Piyush, you can unmute and you can talk. I think he is not able to. Anyone else who has any questions?
Piyush, you're on mute.
Kaushik Bhai, you want to talk? You want to? Yeah, I think Piyush has been able to. Piyush, you want to quickly?
Yeah, thank you, panelists, for sharing excellent views on this area. But rightly, it has been discussed there's a legacy systems, legacy machines, but they are legacy people too. So how you upskill them, that's the biggest challenge. So how industry is upskilling them, that's one part. And secondly, how we are going to bridge the gap with industry academia collaboration. Any thoughts on that?
Arora Sahab, you want to?
Yeah, I can. So Kaushik ji, this is a big one. So I also mentioned saying, how do we upskill the people? Now, there are few tools in the technology itself, which are more on a self-learning model, right? So when we bring those tools, so learning management, LLM system, learning management system, when we bring it inside, so that's a learning on the job. So we don't need to really, do offline or classroom training for those people. It can be done using the tool directly on the machine itself, where while he does that activity, the tool himself guides. It takes through step-by-step approach, and it guides you what is the right way of doing it and all. And there is a system, we were talking about, AR, VR system, and etc. We were talking about. Now, how does it help? When all that is being used, it also cautions you. Suppose you feed a standard system into it and give it to a person like who's a fresher or the person who wants to learn. There, you just give him those. There are glasses which you put in, and then you go there on the machine and start looking at that, or operating the machine. It will guide you. The way you start the machine, it will guide you which is the first step, which is the second step. So all those tools which can be used. That's one way of learning. Secondly, of course, there are a few things which come from the vendors itself. So like say MES systems, SAP systems. These are all linked technologies which finally converge. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay.
No.
So where you need to really focus on and see how can we mix both, and then go forward. Using this capability of the vendors or the OEMs who are developing this kind of technology, they themselves come forward and offer you this kind of training. We have at least used that model. One is using learning on the machine itself, using those tools, and also using the OEMs who are developing this technology, and then training them. The biggest question, as I said, was how do we make sure that whatever we implement is compliant as per the regulatory requirements? So that's a challenge that every industry will have to do on their own. It cannot be given as a ready solution by any vendor or anyone, except like the ones MES systems, etc. Now, because they have grown to a level where it comes as a ready-made model for you, you can just implement and plug and play system, and you can go ahead start learning on the as you use.
Yes.
Maybe Atanu can add or Ram can add.
So some of the points from my side, most of the organizations I have worked, I have seen this as a problem and a challenge. But now, over the years, apart from the traditional solution of training people, classroom training, which generally gets done, and the e-learning training which is there, I have come across a point of view, and largely inspired by seeing how adoption of UPI and digital payments has happened to a lot of people in the country who were never exposed to digital means. If my user interface is intuitive and simple, then even if they are digitally illiterate, they will move to the logical thing very easily. So if I compare with, okay, let's look at, the the demat or the stock trading account of ICICI Direct versus Zerodha or Grow. Grow and Zerodha are much more simpler to HDFC or ICICI, their demat or their stock equity platforms, though they were leaders or they were much earlier. So simplicity helps, and Zerodha and Grow has grown in the retail market and the rural sector very easily. People who are the first time traders are also using that. So the UPI payment and this has led me to thinking that if we are to able to design user interface intuitively, less to enter, compliance taken care of by at the back end. For example, date stamp, many things. Many things should not get entered? Only fit for purpose. Then the fact that people might not be used to computers, they had not done too many things, but they will be able to adopt much easily. This is a hypothesis or a belief I have. Because when COVID happened, I saw people begging using mobile phones in Bangalore. So using UPI payments. So that I think to large extent will help. The other part which I have seen, and Aurora ji, what I was just mentioning, see, just like flight simulators can train people very well if we create, and it is nowadays technology is available to create. So we create a simulated environment of various operations and people play around with that to the end that if they are making mistakes, that system says, oh, this is where you are going to make mistake. Don't do this, in that simulated environment. So when they go to the actual environment, they don't make mistakes. So combination of these two things will augment the capability gap which people have. So traditionally, we have been offering these classroom trainings and e-learning modules. But if we add the user interface being much more simpler, intuitive, if we can create a Zeroda and a Grow app for the pharmaceutical industry and combined with the flight simulator type of model for all the equipments, important things. So pharma plant manufacturers can also create for their equipments. This is the computer-aided flight simulator model. And then, we will not make mistakes and people. So combination of these will add to what we already have.
So in addition to that, Atanu, I normally tell this many a times is that you mentioned about UI being very strong, right? Why can't the UI typically be like a Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn? Today, no one gives training to anyone as to how to use a Facebook or Instagram, right? People get onto it very easily. And we have seen 70, 80-year-old people also easily get onto a Facebook or an Insta and start using it. So how do you make it so easy and flexible for people to use? So automatically the adoption will happen. Automatically people will. I think with that, brilliant thoughts. Thanks, gentlemen. Thanks, everyone.
Falgun, if I can just add one point, especially on the training and learning management, right? And Kaushik Bhai specifically asked because there is a change aspect of it, right? People have to, and you will see many people who have resistance to change and then even go for the newer trainings of newer machines and because of whatever perceptions, right? But we all are human beings and then we all get excited by the rewards which you get. So gamification of the simulators, which Anuradha mentioned, right? I think that has really transformed, I would say, the way people see learning and training, right? And then that motivates people to really adopt that change. Otherwise, there is always resistance to that. That's the only thing I wanted to add.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ram. Brilliant thoughts. Thanks, everyone. But I would hand it over to Kaushik Bhai for closer points on this. Kaushik Bhai, you're on mute if you're speaking.
Yep. I think we have more than 100 years of wisdom with us today, and we can go on, and maybe a full day session also won't be enough, but it's a good beginning. I must say that. And I must really acknowledge the positive support extended by EY Parthenon when we approached from the behalf of Indian Pharma Machine Manufacturers Association, more commonly known as IPMMA. And we decided, okay, let's do something which benefits industry. And the most burning topic, everybody agreed that it's a digitization, smart manufacturing, pharma 4.0, or whatever terminology you use. But at the end of the day, it's a digitization and where pharma has to grow if they have to really make it remain competitive globally, not only India. India, within our Indian regulations, much more things to be done, but globally, we need to be competitive. And this is the only way forward. To begin with, I must thank Harshit Bhai, our president, IPMMA, basically to push for this webinar. At the same time, giving a highly motivating, can say welcome speech, which set the ball rolling. And the Ram, you have been given excellent flying start with your keynote. and mainly addressing on the Pharma 4.0 and the future successes, how we can proceed forward. You set the ball rolling by saying that, okay, rightly explain the tangible, non-tangible benefits of implementing Pharma 4.0, overview of entire technology, the enablers were explained in details. Thank you very much, Ram, for that. And thanks to all the panelists. I won't name individually because everybody has shared much more than what even we had thought of. And for that, I must compliment Falgun first, our moderator, who did his best to extract out best from everybody. Because that's the key to success, to take out best, because everybody has lot many things to say, but to get the right things for the right audience is the key. Falgun, thank you very much for doing a wonderful job. And Anil, Atanu, and Ani, rightly more commonly known as, you rightly touched upon various aspects, I will say. I won't go in everything in detail, what you have spoken. Everybody has heard about it. But mainly the points which came out, the integration of the machinery systems, then what machine manufacturers should do, particularly providing dashboards, then mindset needs to be changed, validation challenges, cybersecurity challenges, data privacy, also the infrastructure challenges, because we have in India, particularly we have at remote places, we have much more challenges of integration than the metro cities. And now all the factories are, most of the factories are in remote places.
Yeah.
So that's a way the infrastructure challenges comes more important than the other issues. And of course, regulatory, data integrity, cybersecurity, that's an ongoing challenge. And that the one which we need to deal with, because we always read lot many things on inspections and outcomes. But I'm sure that with all our expertise and continued education, knowledge sharing, we'll keep on upgrading ourselves. And before I close, I must thank our IPMMA Secretariat, our executive committee members, and entire ENY team who are behind. I must say Falgun, Ram, and they are in front face, but not many people have worked on this to make this a success. Thank you very much for that. And this webinar would not have been success without the presence of all the participants. I must say there were 100+ participants. And I must compliment, we had a participant, the pharma leaders also to participated. We had Mr. Barve, who's the Joint Managing Director for Blue Cross Laboratories. Then we had a Sola, who is a president for Industrial Pharmacy section of International Pharmaceutical Federation. That is a federation of 136 associations globally, where Sola leads the Industrial Pharmacy section there. I am a part of an executive committee there. So that's the way we have a global reach. And we do have a participants globally too. And I must say to all the participants, we'll be sharing our uploading, I'll say, not sharing, the recording of this webinar on our website so that everybody can have benefit of it. And before I close, we already decided to go for a second webinar, much more in this same subject, but little more in detail on 3rd of May. You'll be receiving shortly communication on that. And I'm sure that time we'll have 100 of you will get another 100 and we'll have 200+. So thank you very much and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone for joining.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Netaji.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It's a big success.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.